And, honey, I think there's someone on the roof. Go see. So he gets his shotgun and he goes up and he sees Santa Claus and blows him away with the shotgun.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Nerd On, the podcast you didn't need, but you deserve, and where all levels of nerd are welcome. Everybody. This is a very special episode. We have a guest.
Yes, we do.
We are graced with Steve Rudnick.
Hello. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Now, you were brought to us by Corey.
Connection, yeah.
Why don't
connection
you explain that connection?
We have a mutual...
Weave us a tale.
Well, me and Tom both
right.
know a gentleman named Bill Holmes who
Shout out.
kindly connected us to Steve here today. We are all at this table because we're fans of your work. And we admire the things you've done. So yeah, it's not much of a tale. It's not a long tale, but it's an important one.
It's an important one. But before we get into the show, let's do the housekeeping. I am Josh.
I'm Caitlin.
Corey.
I'm Tom. Ollie.
And this episode is brought to you in part by the members of the Nerd On Nation that is powered by Patreon. As a member of the Nerd On Nation, you do get fun perks like bonus episodes that nobody else hears but you.
Mm-hmm.
Only you.
You get access to the Discord server, which is hopping all the time. And we've been getting a lot of emails recently that people have been saying it is my favorite thing, that it's actually a community to be a part of and just to talk about things, even personal things, which is really, really cool.
Heartwarming.
You're welcome.
Yes, but check that out, nerdon.io/Patreon. And very exciting stuff. We recently partnered with Apogee and Odyssey. Odyssey headphones, very comfortable, very wonderful sounding. We love them. And Apogee, speaking Apogee, we have our very first live show.
Yeah.
With a live audience. That could include you. If you are in Southern California. If you want to drive to us, I mean, that's cool too.
That'd be sweet.
It will be March 7th at 8 p.m. at Apogee Studio. Do check out all the information at nerdon.io/live. That's the housekeeping. That's it.
Remember, the 7th of March.
We know, Corey.
Yeah,
we know it's not a
all
thing.
right.
Still
it's
not.
Let's
gonna
get
be
into
a
this
thing.
thing.
Let's do it.
All right.
So
hi, hey, thank you for showing up.
Again, thank you.
Thank you for
I
spending
was
time.
supposed to be here last week, but something happened, but I'm fine now.
Life finds a way.
Everything, yes.
We're fluid.
Life always finds a way.
Don't
So
worry,
thanks for having me here.
Of course. Thank you for coming out.
Okay.
We weren't spiteful at all. Don't worry. It's okay.
Gotcha.
But no, things happen. It's crazy, and it's time is very important. So like just spending the time here to listen to talk to us, and also let our listeners hear some of the cool stories. So I mean you've had like a wonderful story of different experiences that you've had. I think kind of just to start off at the very beginning.
Yeah. It's a very good place to start, as they say in Sound of Music.
The beginning of. Okay, so the beginning, I started out as a member of a comedy team. And it was Leo Benvenuti, who was my writing partner also.
Nice.
We wrote all those movies together. Mm-hmm. And we toured for 15 years as a comedy act.
Oh, wow.
And then ultimately came out to Los Angeles in 91.
Where were you coming from?
From Chicago. That's
okay.
where we know
That
Bill
sounds
from.
right.
Yeah.
Chi-town.
Yeah, I know. Bill Holmes and Leo and I, we go back maybe 40 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
He was telling me about a bit you guys used to do with your own version of Who's on First, with all, but he would use the actual names of the Cubs players.
Yeah, that. Leo and I, we used to do an act that other comics loved. We would always, what's called play to the back of the room. You know, if we could get the wait staff and the bartenders to laugh, we knew we were good. And one of the bits we always did that the audiences never got, but other comics loved, was our Who's on First. You know the Who's on First bit.
Yeah.
So we would do it, but we would just replace the names with the 1969 Cubs. So Leo would say to me, he'd say, yeah, so Steve, I'm a big fan of the Cubs, but I would say, and I never remember the names of the guys. And I go, oh, that's easy. We had Santo on third, we had Beckert on second, we had Banks on first. And I'd go, well, that's what I'm trying to find out, the first baseman's name. He'd go, Banks. I go, the guy playing first. He goes, Banks, the man on first base. Banks. I said, look, all I'm trying to find out was Beckert on first. He goes, no, Banks is on first. I'm not asking you was Santo was on third. No, he's on third base. How did we get to third base? And we just did the whole
Fantastic.
bit.
Oh, my God.
I watched some of your skits online, and Billy
Billy was
oh my
another
gosh, Billy got me cracking
Well, you know what? People often said, "Well, you guys should do a show, like a reunion show." But I don't think we could do Billy. I mean, it's suicide. It's a very funny
different
bit
time.
about a suicide hotline, and I think that's
Oh,
maybe
no.
Where a
maybe a little bit of
seven-year-old
a,
is answering the phone.
It's a 7-year-old who's supposed to be sweeping up at his uncle's suicide hotline, and his father calls.
Oh, no.
And finds out that his uncle had to go out for a minute, and he's been taking calls. The 7-year-old kid has been taking calls, and it was a hysterical bit. But
There's people that I love dark comedy. Like
Yes,
it's how I've gotten through some of the toughest times in my life. So there is an audience for it out there.
I'm
I'll
sure
tell you
there
what.
is.
It's
Yeah,
a gem on YouTube, so go check
I'll
it
check
out.
it out for sure.
it is. It is. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we put it up there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some other. Yeah.
The
But
internet
the-
lives on forever.
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
the Who's on First bit was great because the audience, the look on their faces was often like, why are these guys saying those words?
It's,
They don't
yeah,
make
well,
any
it's such a
sense.
layered
Yeah.
joke. You have to know the first.
Yeah, and just hearing the roars of laughter from all the comics.
You're like, I know we got them,
Yes.
so everyone else is whatever.
But that was always a fun bit to do. Yeah.
Yeah, Bill was saying that. I was like, he was always over sideways every time that
Was-
bit would go on.
Was that the Steve and Leo show?
The Stephen Leo show.
Nice.
Nice.
So you guys come to
Another part of that bit was you got an outfielder. Of course we have an outfielder. You mind telling me the outfielder's name? Billy Williams. I don't know. I just thought I'd like to know. So it's if you know the bit, it's hysterical.
Right.
If you don't know the bit,
You're
you
like,
have
Makes no
no idea
sense.
He's
what
saying
we're
the
talking
names.
about.
What's
Yes.
wrong?
Well, it's play. Yeah, it's play.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Corey, you're
Well, I was
gonna.
gonna say, so you come to California. When was it?
In 91,
91.
well, we had a shot in 90.
Mm-hmm.
We got a call from this producer out here who wanted us to do a pilot for an ABC late night talk show called The Stephen Leo Show. I don't know if you remember Rick Dees was, he had a late night show
Yeah.
in the 90s and he was going to be retiring and they were looking for replacements. So we came out here and we did a pilot and it didn't sell. But a year later, the same producers were doing the Carol Burnett show,
Yeah.
the new Carol Burnett show in 91,
Yeah.
Mhm.
which sounded fantastic. It was, here's Carol Burnett, the icon of the 70s. We're going to bring her into the 90s. The producers, they got Rocco Urbisi and Neil Marshall. Rocco had worked doing all of George Carlin's comedy
Oh, wow.
specials. He worked with Lily Tomlin.
Wow.
They were just great guys, and they were
Yeah.
gonna bring Carol into the 90s. And within 2 weeks, it was just clear that this was not going to work.
Oh, wow.
Oh, no.
Yes.
That's
And the
tough.
writing staff was amazing.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, it was me and Leo who went on to write a lot of good movies. It was Bill Prady who went on to create the little Big Bang Theory.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
Wow.
It was
It's a small show, you know.
Mike Armstrong, who won an Academy Award with Stephen Wright for a small film.
Yeah.
It was Ron Hauge, who went on and wrote for The Simpsons. So it was just this young,
No
hip,
shortage of talent.
Yeah.
a real young, and it was clear from the get-go that this was just not going to work.
Yeah.
So what happened was,
Do you
in
think
ni-
it was like the type of humor that Carol and like a lot of the greats had? Like it just didn't fit, or
didn't. She thought she might want to be ready to come in and do like some hip comedy and stuff, and
Yeah.
some stretch a little, but it just wasn't working.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
You know?
Interesting.
Yeah.
But it got us out here. That was. I remember my son was 5 years old, and my wife and I decided, well, look, I've got this job. Let's just move out to California. Let's
Wow.
just pack up and move. So we packed
Wow.
up and moved. I came out in July. They came out in October, and the show was canceled in November. So,
Wow.
So glad we did this.
Immediate.
Little domino effect there.
so that happened, and then it just kind of snowballed where we started. We went and we worked on the Dennis Miller show for a while, and then
Yeah, I
we
saw
sold the
that.
Santa Claus, and it was just turned out to be a good move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Turned out for the best.
So how did that story come upon where you and Leo were working on Santa Claus?
Yeah, where did that come from? What was the origin of that?
Okay, that was interesting. We were a comedy team, as I said, in Chicago, and towards the end, in the late '80s, we decided, you know what, we want to write more. We want to write plays and maybe even movies.
Okay.
So we got an office, which was unheard of. We rented office space in Evanston, And we just sat there and we came up with ideas. And I remember one day, I don't know why I thought of it, but I thought, boy, if you killed Santa and had to take his place, I wonder if that's a movie.
A passing thought in your day.
It was and I went to Leo. I said, hey, I had this, and he said, oh, that's great. What? Yeah, let's. So we started talking about it, and it was a very dark movie when we first.
Not a kid.
I imagine. I mean,
Sure.
yeah, it
Some would
involves-
say it still is.
Well, it still is, but our version was it was a husband and wife. And, honey, I think there's someone on the roof. Go see. So he gets his shotgun and he goes up and he sees Santa Claus and blows him away with the shotgun.
What's different?
Yeah.
The original version of Santa Claus
a
gets
home
blasted
invasion.
with
Yes,
a
yes. It's a
shotgun.
home
Yes.
Off the
invasion.
roof.
Yes, it
That's
was. It was.
wonderful.
I mean, look, there's a guy on your roof trying to break into your
Yeah. I
mean,
chimney.
that's
What are you going to do
trespassing
in this
and-
day and age?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we
Sounds
had-
like a
yes.
reboot.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
could be a reboot. But we came to L.A. for the Carol Burnett show. And we didn't have an agent, obviously, because we just got this through this connection. So the irony of ironies in Hollywood, when you need an agent, you can't get an agent. But when you don't need an agent,
You get
all
one.
the agencies want you. So we were actually taking meetings. There was hey, William
Wow.
Moore wants to meet you guys. CAA wants to meet you guys. So our first one was
Wow.
with CAA. We walk in and, we're like just two guys from Chicago. We don't know. Hey, this is the biggest agency. Okay, maybe we'll go here. We get in the elevator and hold the elevator, please. And Sean Connery walks on and gets in the elevator with
Who's
us.
that? I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm nudging Leo and he's nudging me. And, Sean gets off and we go to the floor. And I just turned to Larry. I said, we're signing with these guys.
Yeah.
Closed.
Sean
I'm not even-
Connery.
That's a sign and a half.
I don't
right
have
there.
to take a William Morris meeting.
Wow.
So we did sign with them, and they helped a little, and but that was
I
how
would
we.
hope they would.
Right.
Second floor, please.
But so we signed with them. So he says, "Okay, guys, so you got TV? Is that what you want to do? TV?" We said, "Well, TV and movies. Oh, you have any movie ideas?" And we told them the Santa Claus
Being
and
blown
showed them the
away.
script. And they came back and they said, "Guys, listen, this is such a great idea, and we really hate telling writers how to write their stuff." But because it's a Christmas movie, we think we could sell this if you can maybe, I don't know, get a kid in this, something.
kid fires
maybe
the
a
shotgun.
kid. So we said, okay, so yeah, a kid. Well, let's make it the divorced dad and the son. That's just as good. That's
Yeah.
fun,
Yeah.
And then they said, yeah, and when it sold to Disney, obviously we knew we weren't going to be able
Oh,
to
yeah.
shoot Santa Claus.
Right.
No.
Right.
But
Almost.
that's
So
what
close.
that's what it came to, and the whole thing about Santa Claus that I think Leo and I are probably the only ones that know this is that our vision of Santa Claus was we both had small kids at the time, and we wanted to write movies that
They
their
could watch.
friends can go see.
Yeah.
But we also liked movies like we were huge James Bond fans, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
why the Sean Connery thing. So we said, well, let's throw in as much James Bond crap in
Yeah.
Santa
the
Claus.
gadgets and the
Or there's the
And-
cute elf.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. And so a lot of the things that like the head elf Bernard.
Yeah.
M is the head of M16.
Yeah.
Bernard Lee plays M, so that's where Bernard came from. And
Man.
Nice.
Quentin was the guy who did all the
Right.
that's Q,
Q.
branch.
Yeah.
And our vision was that, okay, so we'll do this movie, and then we'll do a sequel with Tim, and then just like James Bond, the next film we'll have a new James. But maybe
Santa.
it's
Yeah.
who it could be anyone. It could be anyone.
Yeah.
Chris Rock is
Yeah.
Yeah.
Santa Claus
and it
now,
works for the premise.
and it totally worked. But Disney just dropped
Was
the
like,
ball on that.
Yeah.
No.
So with that, I mean, so from what you guys were, finally what you've written, no shotgun, there's a kid now involved.
Right.
And then to, shooting and then, to production, then seeing it, how much had it changed and grew?
It's once it sold to Disney, obviously we knew that okay, this could be big for us. This is so it's a kids movie. So we made it as kid friendly as we
Right.
could. We tried to push it as far as we could.
Some good adult jokes.
and we
in
got
there
some
still.
good stuff in there.
Yeah.
And it originally sold as a Hollywood Entertainment, which was the independent version of Disney.
Right.
But as they started to see where it was going, they decided at the last minute, I think Joe Roth came in to take over Disney. He says, no, we're going to release this as a Disney movie,
Oh, wow.
which was huge for us.
Right.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
big
You guys were,
deal.
please.
Right.
Did anything else come down from Disney as far as well, now that
Changes?
it's under Disney, any additional things?
No, you know what? I think there's one fart joke in there.
With the
reindeer.
The reindeer.
There's a reindeer fart joke, and then Tim
Santa.
Allen cuts
Yeah.
a fart too.
Yep.
They wanted that in there. Disney was big on farts.
Yeah.
And then they were also big on adults spilling things on them. So when there's cops drinking coffee and they're looking up and
Yeah.
Oh,
They
yeah.
spill it on themselves.
So they're those are just little things. Yeah.
In those movies.
But as far as we had one scene that we turned into Disney that we loved. It was when Scott Calvin realizes that maybe he is Santa and can't go on. He's at his desk and he's just distraught, and he reaches into his drawer and he pulls out a gun and he puts it in his mouth and he bites it off. It's licorice gun.
Oh my god!
And he's just sitting there thinking, I can't. And they said, guys, wow. That's pretty funny, but I don't think we could.
yeah.
Reverse.
So about that.
That's so cool. I mean, I really like that because that's a very like dark but playful idea.
Yeah.
Like you're playing.
It's a good
when
visual
you're
gag.
sad, you go to your comfort food.
Yeah, exactly.
A licorice
Yeah.
gun.
Play with
Gun.
expectations.
The thing I love about that film is there's a lot of I talked about this on our episode we did on it as well. There's a lot of things that explain the magic of Santa
Right.
Claus in the most brilliant way that I've ever seen. It disputed every bully's like, well, then how does he do this
Right.
kind of thing?
Transforms
And
the chimney.
I got to give a shout out because it's how like when I was a kid I was like, oh yeah, all of this
That
this
answers
is
the
exactly what it
questions.
is.
Glad I could help.
It's
It was
how did you guys come
perfect.
up with that kind of stuff? Like it's such a wonderful exploration.
Was there like a workshopping of like?
No, it wasn't. It was just what we realized that for creating this world, and we could come up with our own rules and figure it out. And like how do you get in there if there's no chimney?
Right.
Well, one appears. What
Yeah.
the hell?
Simple.
It's that easy.
yeah.
Improv.
It just had to be kind of consistent throughout.
Right.
And make sure, like when the elf squad tries to break him out of prison, and they use the tinsel to get through, so that we just had fun with it.
It was great.
What James Bond character is? Was it Judy who makes the cookies?
Judy,
in the chocolate milk?
she's just the Bond girl. I think
but she's seeing someone.
she's just the
seeing
hot
someone in
8-year-old
Rabbit.
Bond girl.
Money Penny.
But she
I was
is,
gonna say, is she Money Penny?
she is over 200 years old.
Right.
Remember?
So you can say that.
Yes.
We can say that.
Yeah,
You can do that. That's
yeah.
okay.
Oh, and the
Just-
drink mix. Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
Shaken,
So-
not stirred.
Yep.
So how
So good.
did Space Jam come about?
Oh yeah.
Space Jam was another one. So we had the success with Santa Claus, and I think we had gotten to Ivan Reitman, and for some reason he didn't want to do a Christmas movie or whatever. But when Bugs Bunny and Michael Jordan started doing those commercials for Air
yeah.
Jordan, they were so popular that Nike said, geez, we should do a movie with these guys. So they went right to Ivan Reitman, who was the comedy guy in those days. And they said, we want to do a movie with these guys. So they contacted us and said, hey, we're looking for pitches for a movie for Michael Jordan. They knew we were from Chicago. Just come in and pitch something. So we basically went in and pitched what became Space Jam.
Wow.
And it, for you young writers out there, it was such a different era. We went in, and it was with Ivan Reitman and all the head guys there, and we pitched the idea. And Ivan goes, "Yeah, okay, I think we'll do this." And then as we left, and before we got to the car, our agent called and said, "Hey guys, I don't know, but you just sold a movie." And he bought it, and we developed it with him. And
Fantastic.
at one point, he said, Michael's playing baseball in Birmingham. I don't know if you guys know him, but would it help if you guys spent a week with him and just kind of got to know him?
I was gonna say I have a note here
Yeah.
that says "Living with Mike."
Yeah, so we got to spend a week when he was playing baseball with the Birmingham Barons to just hang with him, and a lot of the stuff he told us ended up in the movie.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah, there's a scene where, well, first of all, the thing about whenever he struck out, everyone was just very supportive of him. Hey, good swing, man. And he said, oh, one time the catcher was telling me the pitch I should wait for. So there's a scene where he's saying, lay off this one, it's going to be a curveball. And that was just from him. That was real.
I had no idea that was
Pulling
real.
directly
Right.
from life.
Because that's a brilliant scene.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
love that
that
little
was
scene.
very
Even
fun.
as a kid, I thought it was hilarious.
One of my favorite scenes in that is the beginning, the opening.
Right,
Of like
yes.
like him as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Oh,
was that from
sure.
the best?
Yeah.
Was that like from anecdotal? I'm sure it was at some extent.
Yeah,
right?
he was so close to his dad that we,
You wanted to put that in
something
yeah.
in
Sure,
there,
you
yeah.
appreciated
Yeah, of
that stuff,
course.
yeah.
right.
Were you a Looney Tunes fan?
I was a big Looney Tunes fan and a big Bulls fan too. Yeah,
Oh,
nice.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
Oh,
this
so it
makes
worked
sense.
out.
it was
It
great.
worked out all right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it worked. Yeah, it was to the point where when we did Kicking and Screaming with Will Ferrell, we pushed to get Mike Ditka in that movie because they wanted to get like an actor to play like a. I said no, Mike. We said Mike can act. Watch his commercials. He'd be perfect for this, and he was just so fun to
Brilliant.
work with.
Wow.
Love it.
So, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, what was it like writing for characters like that? Like you grow up with like the Looney Tunes, and now you get to
Well,
write for them.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because you're sitting there and you start thinking, I don't think Bugs would say something like that. That doesn't sound like Bugs, or that's more of a Daffy line, and
Yeah.
so it was you're writing for these iconic characters.
Did you ever get a chance to sit in on like the recording sessions for that?
No, we were on the set a lot,
Okay.
but
Interesting.
How long did it take you to write the pitch script for that?
boy, I don't know, it was a couple months probably.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Just to get that
Okay.
first draft going.
Any particular favorite Looney Tune off the, number one?
I was always a Bugs fan.
Good choice.
Yeah, I
Good
mean,
choice. We got Billy playing Bugs in it too. Which
I
is
know.
kinda
Yeah,
cool.
Billy,
Small
Billy,
world, right?
Billy played a lot of characters in that one.
Yeah, it's
in
great.
Space Jam.
So I mean, what was it like? Coming out of Santa Claus and going to Space Jam. I mean, like now, so feature films, and then doing the plays, and then but going into movies now. So, what was that transition of like now we're pitching in front of studios and stuff like that, or in front of other people?
It was nice. It was good to be in that
Can't
position.
complain about that.
Yeah, I mean,
Was there any type of pressures or was it just kind of like hey, we're just two guys from Chicago and we're doing this thing, or?
I think we were always kind of those guys. Yeah, it wasn't like, hey, look at us, we're the writers. It was like, hey, we can get things done, and
We know what we're doing. We're
know-
coming
yeah,
in.
the
yeah.
You
ideas.
either like it or you don't.
I think maybe because we were a little older when we started. I mean, I was much older than Lee. I'm very old.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
But no, I am. But that's okay.
Do you think that touring, because you did touring for 15 years
Oh, yeah,
before
no,
you
that-
moved to LA, so that probably I feel
Gave you
like
some world experience.
comedy,
Yes.
especially like
Direct feedback.
the direct feedback
Trial
from
by
the audience.
fire, so
Yeah,
to speak.
right.
Yeah, like that
Well-
probably primed you to go deal with executives.
Absolutely. I mean, that's people often ask us, do you miss performing? And we say no. When our pitches are our shows.
Our performance.
Because we were so in tune with each other that we could start a pitch and have our notes and know where it's going. And if one of us or both of us felt that we were losing the audience, the 4 or 5 people in the
Oh.
room, Leo would throw something out that was, I
Just
had
doing a
never
bit.
heard before. And I know how to improv with
Yes,
them. So
and-
we would do it. And then,
Yeah.
they're laughing. Hey, they're laughing. They're going. And,
Can we just take a note
were-
of that?
Did-
Right. It was totally that.
I'm
yes.
curious, did any
Wow.
did any of those comedy bits, or maybe the bits that you never got a chance to do on stage, did any of
Stand-up
that make its way into any of these movies?
We
That you're
were-
kind of like are happy that you got a chance
There
to.
might have been little moments,
Little
but our
gems.
bits were just more like
Lived on
just
the
little
stage.
little jokes and. But the interesting thing about Space Jam is after it was released, there was a writer who claimed that he had come up with this movie before us, and there was a big
Okay.
thing. So and they took a lot of depositions, and I think they ended up settling with this guy. But when they deposed me, they said, "Well, did you ever? We never read this script." I said, "Look, I'll fess up. We did kind of steal this. If you look at the thing, it's a guy following a rabbit down a hole into a fantasy world. It's just Alice in Wonderland is what we're
Yeah.
doing."
Oh, and he did the similar thing. So
No,
it's
he
like-
didn't do it. He just
No.
he
Yeah.
was just doing a movie about Michael Jordan playing basketball with the Looney Tunes, and he said that
Oh.
was his idea. Like we couldn't
Ah.
have thought of that.
Oh,
Yeah, right.
Okay.
right, like it, yeah,
Like the commercials.
Right. Well, but when they,
right, exactly.
when they first approached us to do it, they said, so we want to do something with Michael and Bugs. I don't know if it's going to be like an adventure movie or a superhero or something. And so Leo and I, when we started thinking about it, we thought, well, how do you make Michael Jordan a superhero? He's already a superhero. That's
Right.
Yeah.
we said, let's just make him Michael Jordan.
You stretch his arm really long.
And I think they might have been getting pitches like, Michael and Bugs are cops to save the day or something.
Buddy cop. I mean, of
sounds
And
like
we just thought, no, you can't do
just
better
make
than
him play
Michael Jordan.
basketball.
Yeah,
Yeah. And to get people like, Bill Murray and Wayne Knight killing it on
Well,
the-
Bill
the-
Murray was just, I know he was very close with Ivan, and I think they wanted him, and he just did it almost as a favor. The line that he says, what are you doing here? Well, I'm a friend with the producer. That's totally
real.
what happened.
Just shows up at the
That's
end.
exactly what happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how does Kicking and Screaming come in after this? How does this come about?
Kicking and Streaming comes in where we're managed by Jimmy Miller, who is also Will's manager, and we knew Will, and Leo had this. We wanted to do a movie about coaching because we were both fathers who coached our kids, and Leo talked about when he was a kid. He was on a soccer team, and they were really bad. And then they got these 2 ringers from Italy, so all that stuff. So we said, "Oh man, that's a movie." And he said Will would be perfect in this movie as the crazed father.
Right. Wow.
And then we thought, okay, so that's good. And then we came up with this notion of having the great Santini as his father, and we said, yeah, someone like Robert Duvall. He said, oh, we'll get Robert Duvall then.
There you go.
So that was
Just a
great.
great casting.
Yeah. So it was so we went in and we went in to pitch this movie again to Warner Brothers, and no, it was Universal. And Will came with, and it was me, Leo, and Will in the room.
Oh, cool.
And we were pitching, and we get to, and that's the act break, and it was Mary Parent who was the head there. She says, yeah, okay, so what's your availability? And she was ready to make the deal right there.
Oh, wow.
In the middle, And that's how we sold that. Yeah, that's
was
how
that
we
how
sold
all
that
your
one.
deals went? You just walked and was like, "Here's my pitch," and they're like, "Okay."
The good ones did.
The good
but,
ones, yeah.
But
Wow.
Good stories. That's funny that Will was there for the pitch. What
yeah,
was
he
that kinda
came
like?
in. Yeah, because
Same agent.
we pitched it to him and he liked it, and then we sat down with him and came up with stuff, and he was just coming off Elf, which
Oh, wow.
which helped us and hurt us in the long run because Elf became such a big hit. And we were writing, not a real dark movie, but we wanted this to be,
It is.
if your father and you have a son the same age, you're both, and you're pitting against each other, and it's all this stuff, and we wanted to have that kind of tension and comedy, but they really wanted this to be a real kids movie because to
Right.
cash in on the Elf
Right.
crowd.
So, it
So we
kinda
ended
got-
up having kids again. So it's like, yeah, that one scene you did with Duvall, where we did a scene with Duvall where he has to tell that he cut his grandson from the team. So we set it in like this Godfather office with with the lighting.
Nice.
It was so cool. And then they said, nah, guys, that's just we have to soften that up a little.
So
And that became the scene. I don't know if you remember, but where they're playing darts and he
Yeah.
throws a dart into the tank and it explodes. That's what they wanted. They
Oh.
wanted.
the explosion and the.
And we were at that point. We're saying, well, then why even bother getting Duvall if you're just going to soften him up?
Yeah, right.
That's
Wow.
that's a trend in movies. There's a lot of like hard-boiled actors that like made their bones being like these tough guys that like sometimes studio movies just want to throw into a kid thing.
Yeah.
And then like they have to do that kiddie movie.
and Duvall was having a real fun time playing that stuff because he's not used to being in a fun movie, obviously.
Right.
That's fair.
I mean, do you think, kind of on point with Caitlin's question, you were saying like a different time, like some of these pitches have been, quote, so easy. Do you feel like it is like it's a totally different time
it's
now versus
totally
what it
different.
was? Like
Totally different. Yeah, Leo
it sounds
ended
like
up-
it's more of a conversation where you're like, this is our idea, where now it's
Right. Yes. Leo's given up the business. He moved back to Chicago. He's an artist. He paints and he does.
awesome.
He
Oh,
does some,
fantastic.
but and I think he started to get disenfranchised, and I did too. For when it became like pitches where you'd go in and you'd pitch, and they'd give you notes, and then you'd come in and you'd repitch, and they give more notes, and it was just becomes. I said, well, all these that's our job. That's the job. That's not the pitch.
Right.
And that's what
Right.
it's like today. It's like you have to go in and work so hard to get something.
It's
where
almost
they'll
not
start-
yours at the end of the day.
Yeah,
It's
it's right.
kind of your idea, but they've written it after all the notes.
Well, I mean,
Right.
I feel like it'd be okay if like you got the job and then say, hey, we can't do this because it's a kid movie instead of like before, like during the
Right.
actual pitch.
Right.
So
like-
it became that I don't. It's very hard to walk into a room and sell something.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like you sold
these
us on
days.
like Santa Claus with a licorice gun already.
Right. So, yeah.
We're sold, man.
I'm on it.
Well, the thing is, like, that still got greenlit at first, and some of that tonality still permeates through
Right.
the work, as opposed
Yeah.
to something just being like immediately
Squash.
having to
Completely
be
changed.
cleaned and
Yeah.
washed.
And so, what is that like? Where there's the famous cliche of killing your darlings, and so it's like, what happens? What do you and Leo? What do you guys do when they're like, hey, we can't really do this? So how do you guys pivot? How was that?
Yeah,
process?
I think we. I don't know if it was because we knew each other so well or what it was, but we just felt like, okay, yeah, you have to do it. You have to do it. Just
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
it and take it.
Yeah.
What, you
Another
know,
creative challenge.
I'm not going to sit here and argue, about something that.
And that sounds super improv background. It's like, what are we gonna do with a no? Nothing. So let's
It's
just yes
improv
and go
background,
on.
but it's also at the end of the day, we're just making a movie.
Yeah, right.
It's just making a
We're not-
movie.
Sometimes the bits
Trying
don't
to-
make it.
You're not trying to run the country.
Okay,
or anything.
my favorite line in the movie after cut. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Let's make it happen.
They happen.
Wow.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I want to be able to hear that because so I write and direct my own films, and Corey, writes, and we produce stuff together as well. And Corey's going to direct sometime soon, and I'm going to get him to do it. But like, so yeah, it's funny because we hear from friends and family and all stuff like clear your darlings and stuff like that happens, but hearing it from someone who's been on the other side,
your babies.
working on it, like hearing about like those experiences, like, hey, yeah, sometimes it just happens.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like a very normal thing.
Yeah.
So, what are kind of the highs and lows of having a writing partner? Like obviously it's wonderful to have almost sharing a brain with somebody, but
Yeah.
also I assume there, even no matter how close and knowing each other you were, there were some clashes maybe.
Our clashes were. It's just when we were on the road. Okay. We'd be driving from like Chicago, say, to Detroit or Chicago to Columbus, Ohio. So Leo's driving, and we would get to a toll booth, and he would be, "It's your turn." And I would say, "What do you mean it's my turn? I paid the last toll." Yeah, and those were the fights we would have.
the extent.
Never, ever can I remember us having a fight about, no, this is funnier, no, that's funnier, no, this is, no,
It sounded like you guys yes-anded each other. Where you were
Totally,
like,
yeah.
That's great. And then we could
right,
do this.
yes. It was a lot of that, and it was also a lot of, by the second round, you knew instinctively who was right.
Yeah.
If I'm sitting there, I'm going, well, he's right. I'm not going to sit here and argue with him just for the sake of arguing.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do it your way. And the same thing, if he felt
way
that
around.
I was not even right, but that he felt stronger about it than I did, or I felt stronger about something than he did, then give it to the other
we'll
guy.
give it
What
to
are we
him,
going to do?
This is not the
Right.
hill I'll die on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Yes, totally not
Wow.
fights.
I'm like trying to picture the world in which everyone had your kind of mindset where it's like, yeah, why am I going to argue about it?
Yeah,
Like,
no,
It'd be
that's
nice. It's a nice
it'd
thing
be
to adopt, I think.
pretty good, I think.
it's interesting because I mean, like, I don't know. Again, maybe the industry is so different now, but like you hear a lot on the headlines of like creative differences. This person dropped out X, Y, and Z, and so hearing a story like this is like it sounds like it's almost a 1 in a million kind of relationship or 1 in a billion because it's as much as people want to get together, make a story, and all this stuff happens. Like I feel like there's definitely some people who are like, I want to have this X, Y, and Z thing happen. And then they're just going to they see 2 different movies at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, that could happen.
Yeah.
But I think it's more that we were just always on the same page. And if there were artistic differences, it would be, we disagreed with them. You
Right.
know?
Right.
And
You guys were always on the same side.
Yes, I can't remember a time when,
Well, it's also important to do in
got
the industry when you're trying to sell and write scripts.
Right,
If
you
you
know.
guys aren't in the same corner, then it's
Yeah.
not going to happen.
Right.
You
Was
know?
there
Yeah.
ever a time that you can remember where there was something that a studio or somebody wanted you to change and you were just like, no, this is something that we will not change?
Was there any hills that you wanted to die on?
It almost got to that with Kicking and Screaming because we felt that we had so many nice things in place. Why do we have to do this silly scene when we have this dark kind?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then it's like, well,
Again.
look, it's Universal. They're,
Paying for
trying
it.
to put out this movie, and they had, it turned out, I think, to be the wrong decision, but it wasn't my decision to
Sometimes you
make.
gotta
Right.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
still got to do a cool job.
Here's an interesting thing that links the 2 movies together.
Yes,
where,
please.
Where, okay, so it's 91, 92 when we're they start filming the Santa Claus up in Toronto, and so we went up there to see some of the filming, and it was the big warehouse where they have the North Pole.
Yeah.
It was just amazing. And we're there for the first day, and then I go back to my hotel room, and I'm sitting there, I'm watching a movie in my room, and Leo calls and says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm watching a movie." He says, "Come up to Jimmy's room right now." I go, "What? What's going on?" "OJ just killed his wife. He's on the run." So we go up and we watched the Bronco chase, and that was it, and it was like, "Oh my
Holy
God,
smokes.
OJ just killed. He's going to kill himself," and we were all just sitting there watching it.
Whoa.
Wow.
Okay, now 4 years later or so, we're in Michael Jordan's trailer on the lot, watching the trial.
Right.
And it's the end of it, and they're saying,
Wow,
and we
full
find,
circle.
and so it's me and Leo and Michael Jordan and all his big, the big bodyguards,
Of
and
course.
they're getting, and the verdict is not guilty, and we go, not guilty. Well, that's great, guys.
Wow. Read the room.
Yeah.
But that was, that's it was interesting that tied together, that both
Yeah,
those
both
movies
those movies.
happened at those pivotal times, and that.
Wow.
That's
So since you're talking
Wow.
about those two films, was it like Santa Claus done, and then you got the like, hey, want to do a pitch for Space Jam, or was it happening intermeeting between the two?
No. Santa Claus got done, and then there was a comic, John Mendoza,
Okay.
who had an offer from NBC to do a show, a TV show, and I don't know if we knew John or something, but they got a meeting with us, and we pitched an idea, and he liked it, so he said, "Okay, let's do this for NBC." So we did the pilot, and it was on the air for I think a season. So we did some TV, and that we didn't like TV as much as movies.
What
And
was the difference? What was the differentiator?
the differentiator is what I'm talking about, of having to kill your babies and deal with them. You do that every 6 months or every 3 months, but in TV, you're doing that every 10 minutes. There's some kind of crap that you have to deal with. It's just
To network and
the network, and then to actors and
Ratings.
directors and other writers. It was just such a
A lot more cooks in the kitchen.
yeah, and we sold the pilot, and then NBC said, "Well, who's going to run the show now?" And it was the executive was Glenn Padnick, who had put Seinfeld on the air, and he said,
show.
"You know what, Steve and Leo, I know they'd never run a show before, but I think they could do it. They handled the pilot pretty good, so they
Wow.
let us run the show."
wow.
So again, we went from like staff writers to showrunners
Whoa.
without any training or anything. We didn't
That's
know
a
what
leap.
Yeah.
that was a total. I mean, when we were sitting in our office and they're saying, "Okay, are you guys hiring people yet?" "Yeah, we're hiring." We didn't know who it. "Did you get a UPN yet?" "That's the most important thing." I said, "No, yeah, we're on that. We're going to." And then he leaves and he goes,
What's
the P has to be producer. Producer network? Unit
No.
So we called our assistant and we said, "Yeah, can you set up some meetings for some UPMs?" And she goes, "Okay, I'm on it."
Oh my God.
Just rolling with the
Yeah,
punches.
so, and then we
amazing.
hired one that we liked when we found out what it was, a unit production
gosh.
manager.
kind of a big important cog in the machine.
But yeah, and that was it too. That then it hit me too when I was on the set doing something, and a guy stops me. He's got two dresses, and he goes, "For that one scene with the dress, which one you like better, the black one or the maroon one?" I go, "I don't know, the maroon one." And he goes, "All right, we're going with the maroon dress." I said, wait, I'm making the decision. He goes, "Oh, you're Steve, aren't you?" I go, "Yeah." I said, "Well, let me see the dresses again." Well, now I'm looking at the dresses.
Right. You're like,
Think
Leo,
about
come
it.
over here.
it's
We
a
have to
big
pick a
decision.
dress here. This is our job.
Is it
Let's-
white or blue?
Yeah, and then Leo goes, "I like the maroon." I said the maroon. That's what I thought first. Yeah, we're going with the maroon dress, everybody. We're the showrunners. We know what we're doing.
the showrunners say the
We
maroon
say-
dress.
And that's when it became, because then we would write something where John looks at the clock and said, "Wait, no, let's change that." Why? Because there's 5 guys going to come to us with 8 clocks and asking us which clock we want. So just write, he notices the time. You
Yeah.
know, because if
Yeah.
you say clock,
They gotta get a
then
clock.
in the next
It's a
production
keyword.
meeting,
Do you want a digital
there's
clock? Do you
18
want-
clocks. It's digital,
Wow.
this, that. So, I mean, that's
Yeah, being very specific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand that.
so then towards the
Wow.
end of that, where things weren't working out for us, I think we ultimately got fired from that job.
Oh no.
Yeah,
It was fun while it lasted.
but that's it. Yeah, and then we got the Space Jam
There
from
you
that.
go.
Wow.
We went into
That's
Space Jam
great.
from that. So
Not so bad.
it
Not
wasn't
so
so
bad
bad
at all.
Leap
and then
to
and then
leap.
we did that, and we did maybe worked on some other movies, and then we said, well, let's do TV again. What was so bad about TV? And we heard that Damon Wayans was looking for a show, and we had
Damon.
an idea. Yeah, Damon Wayans. So we went in, we pitched, and he said, oh, we love this, and so we did it. And it was Damon Wayans, and Andrea Martin was in it, and it was a good show. It was like a cop show, a comedy cop show. And we did the pilot, and we showed the pilot to Peter Roth, who was the head of Fox at the time. And this was when Fox, they only had on like Married with Children.
Right.
It was a fledgling network. And he viewed the pilot. We were all in the room, with me and Leo and Damon and everyone. And he goes, guys, this is it. This is the show that's going to change our network. He gave us all a hug. We were fired 3 weeks later.
Oh, wow.
This is it.
What a flip.
And then that one was, we were fired, and then we said, geez, the agents made that call. Guys, I got you both on the line. Listen, they're going to go in another direction. And we went, geez, that's a shame. I mean, we really could have used the money. And he says, oh, well, they still have to pay out your contract. And we went, what?
Oh my
And
gosh.
this was the greatest, because the show is becoming like a nightmare for us to do.
Sure.
And when we found out we were getting paid too, it was like, all right, way to go.
Severance.
We should have this happen more.
Now I know how to do this.
Wow,
There you go.
So what is it like wearing different hats? Like recently you had the Muppets. And
Muppets
you were,
was
you
fun,
were
yeah.
producing as well, correct? It was a
I
consulting
was
producer?
a consulting. I was just on as a writer, as just one of the other people in the room, which was really fun for me.
So
Yeah.
just for somebody like me that doesn't know, I mean, I hear the name consulting
The
producer.
uncultured.
The
for us.
uncultured.
What
What do you do?
Consulting. There's the executive producers they run the show. The two, and then other people you get. That's the top one you could get. I'm the best writer, the highest paid writer. I'm the executive producer. Okay, I'm a supervising producer, which is down here. I'm a associate producer here. And then if they don't know what the hell you're doing, or they just want to pay you off, not off the books, but they just want to. Consulting producer. It's kind of like a catch-all phrase.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
It makes me
I do
think
a
you
little
know
bit
a
of-
lot about the Muppets. And
No,
you're just consulting.
it just means that they couldn't afford me as a co-exec or executive producer. They didn't want to insult me by making me a supervising producer.
Right.
So they said, hey, we'd love to have you come on as a consulting producer. Well, fine, I don't care. What the hell do I care? I just want to work with the Muppets.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that. What was that like?
That was just a blast too. Having come off working with the Warner Brothers cartoons, just writing for the Muppets was a really fun, a thrill.
I'm a big
I
Muppets
bet.
fan, so
Yeah.
it was a big deal.
But it got to the point where you started to know. Because I was on the set a lot. I was in the writer's room, but I was also on the set when they were shooting. And there's problem Muppets to work with.
Yeah.
Miss Piggy is not the easiest person to work with sometimes.
Wow.
IRL.
I believe it.
Who knew?
Who knew?
I would think it would be Kermit, but-
quite honestly, Kermit could be very opinionated. I'm just saying.
All right.
There are some
I'm just
wonderful
saying.
bloopers I've
Fozzie Bear, nice to work with.
I
imagine.
Which is funny because it's the same guy who does Miss Piggy. So why can't I get along with Miss Piggy? But
But what about Animal?
Wow.
Animal was great.
easy.
Yeah.
And
he
I just
strikes
go
me
out-
as a nice
I just go out and get high with Animal.
There you
Oh,
go.
nice.
That was good.
and play music.
Wow.
There are
in
some
way.
wonderful bloopers you can find online of people arguing in Muppets, but they keep the mouths moving and they keep the voice going. And everything.
That's what was great about them is, well, that's kind of how the show came about because Bill Prady had worked with Jim Henson years and years
Yeah.
and years ago and was tight with him and knew him. And he always had this idea because there is a clip of, I think it's Fozzie and Kermit or someone they're doing a scene and they have to cut the scene. Now, these guys are, they're cramped in and their hands
Yeah.
up. So
Looking
for
at
them
screens.
for them to cut, for them to have to go back and then get back up, it's hard. So they
Reset.
just stay there. So they stay there and they were doing, shtick.
Yeah.
That's just talking to each other, but in character. And Bill would see this and he thought, that's the show I want to do. I want to do those Muppets, the
Whoa.
behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And that's what it was supposed to be, but it went kind of wrong. But
It's a great concept.
Yeah.
It was just fun to work with him, though.
Oh, I
Yeah.
bet.
That's so
That's
cool.
that's kind of that's another one of those like once in a lifetime kind of
Right.
unique experiences, like writing for the Looney Tunes. And
Yeah.
I
how
still
cool
enjoyed it
is,
though.
and-
I mean, it was fun. It was fun to watch it.
Well, it was
Show.
fun, but it was amazing just to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Just what it takes to put on a Muppet show like that is
Oh, I'm sure
incredible.
it's staggering.
What does that kind of like require of you to kind of like when you're writing for these iconic characters? Like do you do like extensive research, or have you always been a fan, or do you just kind of like let me get hang out with Mike for a week and then I could write about it? Or?
Well, yeah, that was when we did. Starting with the Santa Claus, we'd known Tim from the stand-up years.
Oh,
He was
okay.
out of Detroit. We were out of Chicago. So we would go into the Detroit clubs, and he would come and do a guest set, and he would come to Chicago, and we'd open for him.
Right.
And so we knew him.
Nice.
And when we finished the script, and it was ready, they said, well, let's get this to Tim Allen, because we know that he's looking at, back then, Tim had the #1 TV show.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He had the #1 book out at the time.
Wow.
Wow.
And Katzenberg wanted him to do a movie. So we got the script to Tim, and he and his wife read it, and they loved it. And he called Jeffrey, said, "Okay, you want me to do a movie? This is the movie I'm going to do."
Yeah.
So that's how that.
Good looking
got-
out.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
great. So, but it turned out that when did Santa Claus come out? I think
94.
94. So this was 92, and we thought, we sold the movie. We'll go into it. Well, no, his summer was booked up, so it was going to be another year before we even started the movie.
Wow.
But during that time, we went on tour with Tim, and we sat down with him with the
nice.
script.
Oh, that's great.
Because it wasn't written for him, but once
Right.
we knew it was going to be him,
could
we said,
tweak
okay,
it,
now
yeah.
now let's make this character.
Here's
You-
how he might phrase something. Or,
And then here's another interesting thing about the movie. The kid, Charlie, we wanted, when we were writing it, we said, well, what's the kid's name's going to be? We knew that Scott's name had to be SC something.
Right.
Oh no.
So what's the kid's name going to be? Well, if you're doing a Christmas movie, there's only one name for a kid, and that's Tim, Tiny Tim.
Yeah.
Oh.
So his name was Tim. So we're at the first table read. Everyone, here's the cast. Go. Okay, so let's do it about it. So we're doing the table read, and the director says, "Okay, stop. Let's just go back. Let's go back to Tim's line." And Tim said, "My line or Eric's line?"
Oh.
Tim's like, "Guys, can we change his name to
What?
Tim? This is get too confusing." So we said,
Sometimes
"Okay,
that's all it takes.
we'll change his name to Charlie for."
CC, Charlie Calvin.
No, Charlie. Who wrote
Charles
Oh,
Dickens.
Charles Dickens.
Charles
There
Dickens.
it
He's
is.
named after Charles
Oh.
Brilliant.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Wow.
And so it's if anything, a lot of the Santa Claus came with a lot of like kind of almost fan service to any of those like for you guys yourselves because you're like, oh, I love this and I love that, so
Sure.
I'm just gonna bring in what I want to have
Exactly,
in
yes.
it.
Yeah.
And it's built with love. There's not a lot of like, let's just put this bullshit name here or that
Right.
there.
No, we put we put some thought into it.
No, I mean,
Intentional,
you'd
yeah.
think.
Was
I mean,
Bernard was Bernard always written as a Jewish elf, or was that casting?
No, we just lucked out getting crumb holes for that. He was so good in
One
that.
of my favorite little bits is that the head elf is just this little Jewish kid.
Yeah, he was so
Very
good in that.
clearly.
Yeah.
Bronx.
Killed it.
And so you had your idea of where Santa Claus would be. It would be more James Bondy, where sadly the last Santa Claus would always pass on. There would always be a new mantle to go on to.
There would be that, hey, in our head, not knowing at the time, but why couldn't Melissa McCarthy have taken out
yeah,
Santa?
right.
Now she's the new Santa,
Yeah.
It's kind of built in, never ending.
It's kind of
Built
like
in mechanic.
Doctor Who-ish.
I was about
Yeah.
to say.
Right.
Yeah.
Very
That was the
Doctor
other
Who-ish.
thing. It was a cross between. So every 3 years you'd get, maybe a guy would do 2 movies.
Yeah.
And then in the second movie, someone would, oh, look who that is. That's going
Hand it
to be
off,
the
so
next.
to speak, yeah.
Right.
You could feel free to say no unless you have
No.
Well, okay. If you had any ideas, because I want to hear these kind of these thoughts and rambling, because obviously, like you were kind of saying, like Disney went another way with it, and you're still credited with all the characters it created. But I want to hear what is in the Steve Rudnick mind of like, where would you have taken Santa Claus? What adventures would have happened?
Well, what we did was after Santa came out, it was a big hit, and they immediately asked us to write a sequel. So we came up with a sequel called The Escape Clause, where Santa is now, he's into it, and he's but he's now it's too tense, and he's getting a little, and he says, why don't you just take a vacation? there's a few certified places that you can go. You can go to Santa Barbara. You can go to Santa Monica.
Wow.
So he takes a vacation to Santa Barbara and meets a woman, and they fall in love, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so then Tim decides he doesn't want to do a sequel, and I think rightly so, because he had just had a number one movie, a number one TV show, so he didn't want to get
Too many number ones.
right. So I think rightly so. He said, "I'm not going to do a sequel." He went on, and the next movie he did was Toy Story.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
So he made the right decision.
Yeah.
But then
came back.
7 years later,
came back.
I think they said, "Hey, Tib, let's do another Santa Claus movie." And then he said, "Yeah, okay, let's do another one."
Yeah.
Well, at this time, nobody we know is left at Disney. Everyone that we knew from the top down is gone. And we hear, oh, they're doing a Disney thing, and we get a copy of the script, and we go, well, yeah, you know what? It's nothing like ours, but it's kind of like the same. And so we spent a lot of time on our arbitration case and ended up getting story by credit. And that was it.
There you go.
And then Santa 3 came about, and we had no idea that was even the only reason we knew that is
Because they had the name.
No, it was we were at a restaurant, and Judge Reinhold was at this restaurant, and he came up to us and he went, "Hey guys, write me a good part in Santa 3." And that was the first time we heard that there was going to be a Santa 3. So we called our agent. We said, "Hey, is there a Santa 3?" And he goes, "Yeah, I think it's done. I don't know."
Oh my gosh.
I mean,
that was-
it's called Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause. I was like,
Well,
oh my goodness.
2 is called the Escape Clause. 3 is called, I think.
That's the one with Jack Frost.
I think Santa
Yeah.
Claus 2 is just called Santa Claus 2.
They changed it.
From what I have on the internet.
Okay.
But movie titles can change.
Movie titles
can.
got changed.
And then, so right now it just says Escape Clause.
Maybe it was that, but I know one of them was the Escape Clause.
Yeah.
Wow.
Number 3 is the escape clause.
Is it? Oh,
Yeah,
no.
that's what I'm looking. That's what I was like. Oh, so they took the title.
Mrs. Claus. Yeah, there was Mrs. Claus. Yeah, that was the
2.
second one.
Yeah.
I got a wife.
The Santa
Yeah.
Claus. The Santa Claus 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't give that a title, but
Yeah. And then
they
the-
should
They
have.
use the escape clause though.
in the
But they
third-
use it,
Yeah.
yes.
So I was like,
But
oh,
that-
so
that
there
was-
had to be something. I mean, the fact that you said like yours was called the Escape, I was like, they had to say, hey,
Right.
the name came from somewhere.
But but ours was because we did have an idea for Santa 3. It was going to be called Santa 3 Sanity Clause.
I'm
And
so
thi-
sad we missed out on
I was like, you're hitting all of Corey's spots. He's all about the puns. and
Okay,
stuff,
so it was going to be the Sanity Clause, and this is where he's caught, captured, and thrown into an insane asylum, and he's in the ward where people think they're Santa Claus.
Yes.
So they have to team up with all of the
Other Santa
Shakespeare's,
Claus.
all the Einsteins, all the other
yeah.
wards to save the real Santa Claus.
Oh, it's
that was
very
the-
dream teamy.
my
Right. It
gosh.
was that was it. It was kind of a dream team of these crazies.
Yeah.
but then you guys have all these like comedic actors doing those parts,
Yeah,
which would
right.
be freaking amazing.
Right.
Wow.
That's brilliant.
But you just picture him go, who are you? I'm Santa Claus, and there's 15 other
Like, yeah, me
guys.
too. I'm Santa Claus.
Santa Claus. I'm
Yeah.
Santa.
Very Spartacus.
I'm not Santa.
That's
I'm
awesome.
Einstein.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, let's.
I'm Elvis. There's a lot of Elvises at this
Oh, yeah.
sign. I'm
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
I'm sure.
Amazing.
Obviously.
Just building an army of.
It would have been like the movie. Ever see Bubba Hotep?
Oh yeah.
It was kind of
Yes.
like that. That's
Okay.
Love Bubba Hotep.
that's one of I love that movie too. That's a good one.
It's a fantastic
you know
film.
Bubba Hotep?
Yeah, I've-
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
No,
it's so good.
Yeah.
I've told him about that film.
Well, I mean, speaking of another one of your favorites, I reached out and asked you for your favorite movie.
What did I
That's what
say?
we do here.
And you said Doctor Strangelove or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb.
Yeah, no, I never
Yeah.
saw that movie.
No. Oh, okay.
Never even
Oops.
heard of
All
it.
right, so Bubba Hotep's.
that is my favorite movie. I think. Yes.
So explain to me why it is your favorite movie.
What I remember, that movie came out in 64?
Yes.
64, yeah.
64.
Wow.
Okay. I was aware at that point, and I remember I was out to dinner with the family, and my grandfather was there, my grandpa Ralph, who was this just a regular grandpa, regular
Yeah.
Jewish grandpa, and he was, he's saying, "Oh, I saw the greatest movie the other day," and we go, "What is?" He says, "It was called Doctor Strangelove," and he starts telling what this movie is about, and I can't understand a word he's saying, but but I had never seen him so into something like that, you know,
Wow.
and I really admired that.
Jazzed up about
I've got to
something.
remember that, you know,
Contagious.
and then a couple years later when I was old enough, I saw it for the first time and I went, oh my God, this, you know, I wasn't that aware of who Peter Sellers was, but then when I
Yeah.
realized, oh, he's all three of those guys? That's,
Yeah.
and it's just one of the movies that I thought wouldn't age well because it was such, but it was just on
Remains
last week.
topical.
It was on last
Yeah.
week, and I turned it on, and I'm going, this is still a great movie.
Yes,
There-
it
know,
is.
Yeah.
You take a few of there might be a few dated things in there, but it is so spot on.
Yeah.
And the
It's-
performance, there's not one weak performance. And for me, there's not one moment you can't tune into that movie, and within 3 minutes, you'll be completely hooked.
Yeah.
Enthralled with
Yes.
the whole thing.
Yeah, there'll be something that you'll go, oh my God, that's amazing.
It's one of those movies that I had seen it before, but when hearing this was your favorite, I watched it again. And so sometimes when you're watching a movie, you might flip through IMDb on your phone.
Right.
But this is one of those movies that I was like, no, I am so into this
Yeah.
that it's like, this is,
If I look away for a second, I'm
yeah,
missing it.
I'm missing, because it is of a time, I grew up on a lot of older movies because
Mm-hmm.
my stepdad was an older gentleman. And he threw me these movies and some of these actors, I mean, George C. Scott, Peter
Fantastic.
yeah.
Sellers. I mean, but the comedy of that time, I'm such a goot. Like Monty Python's one of my
Right.
things. You got, but this kind of the absurdist comedy too, where it's just
Yeah.
I
Well,
just love that.
Dimitri.
That phone call is one of the greatest phone calls.
improv.
Of course I like
Yeah.
talking to you, Dimitri. Of course I like talking to you.
And,
Believe me, if it wasn't a friendly call, you wouldn't be getting this call.
Yeah.
like watching this in film school because I was, studying Kubrick, and I was like, oh, this is a Kubrick movie? Like that, like threw
Oh,
me
it's just-
such.
Yeah.
Like I was just so like, wow, like I didn't know he can do comedy.
I had heard, I don't know if it's true, but I had heard that Kubrick, he kept asking George C. Scott to go a little bigger in
Yeah.
his
It is
things.
true. Yeah.
And, just bigger. And George C. Scott started hating it. And of course, he always used the biggest scene.
Yeah.
And I thought that he was just brilliant in that
Oh,
movie.
he's great. Well, he said on record, he's like, during it was my least favorite performance I'd ever given. And he's like, and then I saw it and I went, oh,
It's
it's my
fantastic.
That's
favorite
what it
movie
is.
I've ever done.
That
Yeah.
little somersault he does. that-
Oh, which was an accidental trip.
yeah, I mean,
that they
he
kept
doesn't
in.
miss a beat, and just it was
My-
just
My favorite, one of his lines he has is when he's describing how good they are at flying, and he goes, "Do you think they have a chance? Do they have a chance?" Oh. And then he
And then he
realizes
My absolute favorite line is,
Just-
gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
So good.
But just you see him like all of a sudden look up and just read the room and realize that he's just killing everyone's hopes
Yeah.
of this not going off.
no. So and that movie, it's just one of the movies where it's probably the movie I've seen the most. That and the other close second was The Hustler.
Oh,
I
yes.
love
Oh,
that
wow.
one. That's
Classic.
another one. Yeah.
Sad remake. Sad remake.
Well, is that? I mean, obviously, it's a very dark comedy, satirical. Dr. Strangelove.
Right.
Is that? Do you think that influenced your comedy, or vice versa?
I think it might. I think
That's
it
why you
might have.
liked it.
I mean, yeah, I'd never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
And the
What-
comedy in that was just so spot on.
yeah, sharp.
It's layered too.
It
What
is, yeah,
would
it's
you
very
say
loud.
is like the most poignant part of that? Obviously, the bomb falling is like a big thing, but like personally resonated with you.
Poignant. I don't know.
That's a
I mean,
good
I
question.
did like the ending that it ends with just the world blowing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
And I
beautiful
think it's
music.
music.
Yeah.
And, we'll see you then. Don't know where. Don't know
Did you hear
when.
about the like quote unquote the real ending that was going to happen?
No.
It was going to be like they're going to just throw pies at each other.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there was
Yes.
going to be a food fight. Or
Yeah,
something.
Yeah, because
pie fight.
it was the absurdity of like the situation and like
Yeah.
I have a cure, I was like, I have a plan, and then all of a sudden they start throwing pies but then apparently like they were like, no, we're not going to be able to see anybody because it will just become just
Right.
blobs.
Pie.
Well,
of
and like
pie.
yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, Peter Sellers is off the charts in this movie, and his characterization of Dr. Strangelove, who has like the living hand that's
Yeah.
still a Nazi, and he's fighting it the entire time.
You have seen the guy laugh in the background, haven't
Oh,
you?
yeah.
No, I didn't even notice
Oh,
that.
yeah.
There's the guy who's the ambassador from
Yeah.
Russia. He's in the background. Just sitting
Yeah,
there.
Alexei.
And there's
yeah.
one time when he does that one move.
and he brings it down.
He starts laughing.
He
You
goes,
can see it, and he looks away.
Wow.
Brilliant. Oh, yeah, because I
And
read
that, yeah,
Peter Sellers improvised 90%
that
of
is
everything, and
Yeah.
in
He's
all of
also
it.
that's the first time somebody has played multiple roles and won an Oscar for it.
Oh, I didn't know
Oh,
that.
wow.
that's and we got James Earl Jones, his first, not his
It's
first, but it's one of his
movie.
first.
Well, yeah. So like I did read up on this. The way he got cast in this is Kubrick saw him in I think it's Gentlemen of Verona or Merchants of Venice. It's one of the two. On stage, and immediately had him cast in this movie.
He was also
Nice.
supposed to be Colonel Kong.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
he was going to be, but he had
Just
injured.
everybody.
Too many.
He had an injury on his foot and couldn't do the part for some reason. That's when they got
Oh.
Sterling.
Okay.
I got what's his name? The Southern. I
Oh,
can't
to
think-
come out of it. Yeah, Slim
yeah,
Pickens.
Slim
Slim
Pickens.
Pickens. Yeah.
Which I
Who
guess-
man, he's how good is?
Oh god, he's fantastic.
Shoot, I could have a pretty good weekend in Vegas with this stuff.
Riding the bomb down is, I mean, like that imagery also
very
is just
iconic.
on
Do you-
point.
Keenan Wynn coming in, Colonel
Yeah.
Bat Guano.
Bat
Bad
Guano.
Guano was
I mean, just went with that. I
Special.
I don't know. That's just too funny.
Yeah, and he came out of retirement for this.
Did he?
Apparently. Yeah, he had retired and he
Whoa.
read the script and was like, okay, yeah, well, yeah, I'll do this, of course.
Did you
Wow.
all go back and read like the book that it's based on? Because it's
I don't know if
Very-
I might have read that book. Yeah.
Very different.
very different. I'd never read it, but apparently it's like not a
Yeah.
comedy at all.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can see
the
that.
writer talked about it when
Yeah.
they brought in Peter Sellers. Like, oh, and we know it's going to become a comedy.
Yeah.
Well, I remember the first time I saw Failsafe, and I couldn't really take it that seriously.
Yeah.
But it was a great movie. But it's just that one I think becomes a little dated.
Yeah, that one doesn't quite like. There's something very evergreen about this movie,
Right.
And whether it's the choice to shoot it in black and white, or whether
Or I mean, it's fictional characters, so I
yeah,
mean,
it's
they
fictional
don't.
characters. But a lot of the comedy is not about. It's not exactly about what's happening. It's the people within those
Oh yeah, no,
situations.
there's
Yeah.
that long scene where Sterling's telling Peter Sellers about when he first discovered.
the life
Oh,
essence.
Yeah,
the
his
life
life
essence
essence.
fluid thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I just watched it again, and that scene, that's a long scene
Very
without
long,
any
yeah.
cuts.
It's wonderful.
And Peter Sellers has very few lines in that. He's just listening, and just his looks. You know what
Yeah.
I'm talking about,
Oh,
Jack?
yeah.
You know, just like, oh man, I am in some deep shit.
I think the thing that stood out to me the most in kind of that area of time in the movie was when he had the gum wrapper and
Oh
he
my
kept
God.
folding it. I was like, wow, this is like one of the more accurate representations of like being in a very tense situation and not knowing what to do with yourself.
Yes, that
but,
scene,
like,
that little wrapper.
Uh-huh.
just-
And
it
at one
was-
take, it's one long take.
Yeah,
it's
it was-
amazing.
It's patient filmmaking, and like it's
It
definitely
is.
like there's. I mean, that is like a great nuance.
Yeah.
That like you can definitely look at it and analyze it and be like, without the audio, you could be like, this is a really tense scene. With the audio, like this is kind of funny.
yeah. Yeah.
You wonder too, and they say how Kubrick it took so long to make it. Like, what take was that? I wonder.
Yeah.
Oh man,
It's like one take, so you figure all that.
It had to be.
Was that take 56?
the rehearsal,
Was
the
that take
practice.
13?
Right.
Because you can't take the best from that
It has
was
to be
one
the
take.
straight,
Yeah.
straight through, and it's pretty much a perfect take. 'Cause I mean, there's people like Fincher who do 70 takes of
Right.
a specific thing to get it
But
just right.
sometimes they're not super long like that.
Right,
though. So,
exactly.
I mean, but the thing is
Well-
also these are like actors, possibly top of their game. So it's like
It
they're
makes
probably
me
really
think
good.
of like classical musicians, like who are like off the sheet music at that point, where it's got to be perfect if you're
Oh,
going to
yeah.
perform,
Mhm.
but they don't have multiple takes, And
Yeah.
I feel like a movie like this it's the exact same thing.
Right.
Like you
Yeah.
know your notes, you know your beats, like you hit
Yeah.
everyone.
And Peter Sellers is,
But you're also playing in a political time too.
Yeah. One
of the
So it's
greatest-
like this has to be.
it did come out at a
perfect.
very tense time.
Yeah,
honestly.
that's-
Oh,
Like,
what's
what I
yes,
mean, like-
absolutely.
It's I was talking with my my wife's folks about it, and her mom was saying, she was like, I remember a lot of people being not really understanding the film at the time, and being upset that they were making light of a tense situation. And she was like, but it as time goes on, you realize that it was probably one of the smartest films of that year.
And that's I think adds to how much I like it, because
Right.
now when I think back how hip my grandfather was to have gotten that, and to have been so into it.
On top of it, yeah.
It gave me because I was just like 10 or 12 when
and you're like, okay, Grandpa,
yeah,
I'm glad
yeah,
you like a
yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
Okay, boomer, I got you. but now looking back, thinking like, wow, good for you,
him.
Grandpa Ralph.
Pretty progressive.
You weren't just some guy who bounced me on your knee. You know?
Yeah.
Shout out
you
to
had
Grandpa
something-
Ralph.
Like really good comedy requires some like knowledge and some like mental bandwidth. So like yeah, when you have it really good, like it probably wouldn't be as a time capsule as it is now, or it wouldn't stand the test of time if it was just in like context time references. Like if it's something that like every time frame, every time we're going through a war or a weird political struggle, like this movie still stays relevant.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like comedy against like human nature. It's like observing human nature, and that's timeless. Like that's not going to change.
Well,
like sure,
and
the
that's what made
politics will,
the
but
characters so great is everything that they did was a logical decision for that
Right.
character.
Yeah.
Like anybody else is like, this is insane. What
Right.
are you doing?
There's something really brilliant about Peter Sellers and kind of everyone in this film. And I liken it. There was an interview I listened to with Jim Carrey, and he was in the casting process for Dumb and Dumber. And he picked out Jeff Daniels as his favorite. And when the producers asked him, like, why don't you want this other comedian? Why do you want Jeff Daniels? And he's like, well, because he's not playing it for the joke. You
Right.
know, you play it as the real person, and that's where the comedy comes
Yeah.
from. And Peter Sellers was brilliant at like, these are the real people.
Right.
The comedy will
Well,
come,
I mean, and that's
come with
the,
it.
that's
the
kind
truth.
Yeah.
That's kind of, to me. I think that's the true rule of improv is like you don't improv for the joke, you improv for the character. And so when the character knows the rules, then the improv works perfectly.
Well,
But then,
George C. Scott too was
Oh, yeah.
such a great actor, and just if
favorite character,
if he had played that for laughs, it would have been horrible.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
but like
but-
him getting the phone call from his girl. and
Oh,
all
when
that, like,
she's like screaming it back
it's-
and forth.
It's I think. Well, I mean, just like when he's
Plan R, Plan R.
when he's like in the war room and gets the phone call, it's like, I want to be with you, blah blah blah. And I was like, God,
President.
yeah.
it's like I absolutely love, and that's the funny thing because in school I studied Kubrick, and so like we watched Space Odyssey, and then we watched Full Metal Jacket, then we watched this, and so I was like, okay, cool, I know who this guy is, and I watched, I was like, I don't know who this guy is.
I have no idea who this
I don't know who
director
Kubrick is at all, and so that was a cool thing because at the
I know
get,
nothing.
At the get, you as an audience, like, and that's the thing where like I'll never be able to understand how people in the time when it came out watched it, how they felt, but like imagining where it's like, okay, this is a movie about what's going on right now, about different political and all this, and then as you go on, like, oh, okay, you're lulling me into this playful space,
Yeah.
and where we actually can start talking about the real issues at hand of like these are all the paranoias and things that are happening, and
Right. Well,
It's
yeah.
fun.
You look at that movie, and if you didn't know that much about it, you go, "Oh, when was this movie made? Oh, over 50 years ago."
Yeah.
What?
And if not in that opening scene, we'll definitely tell you what kind of movie this is.
Yeah, right.
And
so-
that's I love satire. I love comedy in the truth that it tells. And I mean, especially with like George C. Scott, and yeah, he's going insane. Not insane. I just mean he's reacting to the situation of like he's slowly losing his mind in a sense.
Right.
Where
Except
he's
he's
just like,
right the whole time because at
Yeah,
the end he
and
takes
he's-
the picture of the
and
war room.
I've always
Yeah.
loved that character that is what I'll call the straight guy that's reacting to. It's kind of like the Odd Couple with
the big board.
He'll see everything. He'll see just like the little kid.
we start grabbing all this stuff. And just,
Yeah.
But I also appreciate the smartness of comedy of things like Mel Brooks or something like this, where it's like, no, you have to be really smart to really be able to write about something so important,
Right.
Especially at that time,
Yeah.
and to be able to pull
You
it
have to have a
off.
lot of faith in your work too to
Yeah.
release a movie like that.
And I mean, I think there's a bit of it too, where it's like you just have to have your fingers on the pulse really well, and just know what people are listening and looking to. I mean, and so like it's you can drive yourself crazy trying to know everything, but then if you just know the pulse, like, oh cool, I know how we can turn this into a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
for sure.
It's
Any
fun.
specific favorite parts you have?
I
The one that
just
stands out
I
to
remember
you?
seeing it when the first time I see it. The first time you see Peter Sellers, he's behind the sheet. He's got the computer sheet,
Yeah.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and they just go into this computer room, and you don't even see and then it just comes down, and you go, I didn't know that was a man. This is going to be you don't know that there's a person
Yeah.
standing there, and
Brilliant. A lot
yeah,
of
it's
brilliant
amazing.
framing in this too.
I love when Keenan comes in and I must know what you think happened here.
Yeah.
What I think happened here is you're a prevert. And
Yeah. The prevert.
Captain Kong found out about your perversions, and
And they
when he's making the phone call, do you have any change? Yeah, I don't bring change into battle.
yeah, and he says, okay, but after this, you're going to have to answer to the Coca-Cola company.
Yeah, just
I love how much money also comes out of the machine. It's like way more than would ever come out of a machine like that.
Trying to call the president collect is a brilliant concept
Oh
as
my
well. And they said no.
What about a favorite character? Like, I know
Or
there's
how
a
about
lot to choose from.
favorite
but-
sellers? What about a favorite
Favorite
seller?
sellers.
My favorite sellers. I like old Peter Sellers. I like Chauncey Gardner was a good one.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. This film led me into his Pink Panther films.
Pink Panther, of course.
That's
yes.
which is like, 'cause I was younger when I first saw this. My dad showed it to me when I was like 10 or 9, so I didn't really get all of it. All I knew was that guy made me laugh a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like, "Oh, if you like him," and so we watched the entirety of the Pink Panther.
Yeah, those
Wow.
were brilliant.
Some of the best physical comedy I think I've ever
Hell
seen
yeah.
on film.
I remember watching those
Well-
as the original, and then I'm like, this isn't Steve Martin. And then my dad's like, shut up, boy. He's like, shut up. This is the real one. I was like, all right, you're right.
Pink
Yeah.
Panther.
I remember my daughter wanted to go see the Pink Panther, the Steve Martin version.
Yeah.
With a friend of hers who was a bit on the scale, So I'm sitting there and we're watching the movie, and she's laughing, and I'm going, "Okay, this is a Steve Martin movie.
Yeah,
he's
right.
doing the best he can." Then her friend who's a little, he turns to me about 15 minutes into the movie, says, "Mr. Rudnick." I go, "What?" He goes, "I'm going to go out to the lobby. I don't know how much more of this I could take." Whoa! And I said, "You know what? I'm with you. I'll go out there with you." So I said to my daughter, "Stay here. I'm taking him to the bathroom." And
Yeah.
we went out to the lobby and played
Just
some
hung out.
pinball
There
games.
you go.
Awesome.
There you go. You can't beat those original ones. They're
Yeah.
just
Oh,
too
no,
good.
they're so
They're
good.
too good.
I'm willing to watch them,
You
like
could-
watch the remakes or whatever.
You can
but
make
then I'm
money
like,
off of it,
Ooh,
Yeah.
but which
Ooh.
one will stand the test of time?
Yeah.
right.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
True.
That's so
Awesome.
great.
Great.
Awesome. This
I
has been
feel
fun.
complete.
Thank you
Well,
so much for taking time with
Well,
us.
thank you
Yeah.
for having me here.
Yeah. It was a
I
blast.
enjoyed it.
This is
been
great.
fun.
Is there anything that you would like to tell our audience about? or-
Anything that you're currently working on that we can talk about?
No.
No.
No, I'm working. Well, now I'm I guess what you would call semi-retired,
All right.
in that
Sounds
no one
nice.
will hire me, so I say I'm retired, so,
There you go.
Hey,
so that
that's,
it takes the sting away.
I get you. I get
But
you.
no, I'm working on a project with a couple friends. I've got a documentary I'm working on with one
Oh.
friend, and another pitch with another friend, and
Nice.
Stuff's
just trying
brewing.
to stay out there, and
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Stay
Being
creative.
gotta-
creative.
Yeah.
if I can, I can. If I can't, I won't. So
Just keep doing the
That's a good
thing.
way to put it.
yeah.
I like
I
that.
love, I love how like chill and relaxed you are about everything. Like you're like, yeah, we got Space Jam.
it comes
Yeah,
with
we got the
age.
Santa Claus.
It comes with age.
Fate has brought you this far.
Yeah, it's at a certain point, I don't know, who was Orson Bean? You guys know Orson, the actor? He was just killed the other day.
Oh, no.
He was from my youth. He was on the panel shows. He was a great guy. Orson Bean, 96 years old. He's out with his wife in Venice, and he gets hit by a car, and then hit by
Whoa.
another car, and is
Whoa.
killed. And I'm going, at 96, that's not the way to go at 96.
No, should be peaceful.
No. Should be taking a nap
Right,
on the porch.
but and then Kirk Douglas just died at 103.
Yeah.
Wow.
I called my mom, who's turning 90 this year, and
Aw.
she, and it's just like, okay, you kind of get into the flow of things. All right, everything's doesn't have to be life and death. It just go with the
Enjoy
flow.
it
and-
while you're there,
Yeah.
man.
Life just
Have it.
happens.
Yeah, life happens.
Enjoy it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you have any? Do you have like one piece of advice you might give writers of today?
Let me get my notes out real quick.
Uh-oh, here we
So
go.
I was like, help,
Writers
help. I'm going to write everything right now.
Boy, I think it's just to keep writing, That's all you could. Don't be discouraged when people don't read it or don't like it or don't get it.
Yeah.
Just
Keep
write
it-
write for yourself and
Keep
hope
writing.
that
Hope that it lands.
and don't try and please everyone, because you're never going to do that. Just
Yeah.
write for
Mhm.
yourself.
If you want to have Santa Claus put a licorice gun in his mouth,
Put it
Or
in
Write
there.
it.
have
Put
a
it
kid,
in.
or have him shoot somebody.
Yeah, blow
Write
them
it.
away. Yeah, I could,
blow him away with a shotgun.
Right.
It's fun.
I mean, yeah, it got to with Disney. It got to the point. Well, okay, so he just falls off the roof, but he does wave goodbye.
Yeah.
That way. I hate that wave.
Oh,
It's just-
no.
Oh yeah.
But that was, and the other thing in Santa Claus that they were so adamant about is you can never have anyone say in this movie that there is no Santa Claus.
Wow. Okay.
But
You know.
Charlie says it.
Well,
No?
Charlie,
No.
They
it's
allude
like
that-
it's about believing.
Right.
Yeah.
We couldn't say, because we had one big scene in there where Scott's trying to explain to
To
his
the-
son
uh-huh.
that look. I'm not. You're right. I am Santa Claus. I'm Santa Claus. I'm the Easter Bunny. I'm the Tooth Fairy. There's not the. We couldn't do that. In
Right.
A Disney
Oh,
movie.
right.
You can't do that
Of
in a
course.
Disney movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do
no.
appreciate a Rose Suchik ladder.
That
Yeah.
was a good one. That one we came up with.
Oh my God, that's right on my funny bone.
The original title of the movie was Such a Clatter.
Wow.
And then a friend of ours came up with, I think it might have been Ron. No, I forgot who it was, but
The
it
Santa
might have been
Claus.
Leo's wife. Might be Leo's wife came up with the Santa Claus,
Aw,
It's a good idea.
but
That's
that
awesome.
worked for us.
it was all great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you again for being here, man.
Thank
This
you.
was, I had a
Appreciate
blast.
it.
Yeah.
I
So much
appreciate it.
fun.
And again, sorry I'm
Learned so
late a
much.
week, but
Oh no, we're
No,
happy
we
to
do.
have you.
Just come back two more times. We'll just have you coming in every time.
Yeah, we'll rotate you in.
anytime you want me.
We'll do a Space Jam movie deconstructed with you.
Yeah.
There you go.
There we
Oh,
go.
that'd be fun.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Everybody at home, thank you so much for joining our conversation. This has been so much fun. If you are new to Nerd On, please do check out our website, nerdon.tv. If you are in the LA area on March 7th, 2020, come check out our very first live show at
Live
Apogee
show.
Studio.
Remember the 7th
No.
of
Still not a
September.
thing. Still not a thing.
Show up. It's
check
free.
out, check
We'd
out
love
all
to
the
have you.
details. Nerdon.io/live. RSVP. Again, we'd love to see you. It's gonna be
Guests, we'll have prizes, a raffle, all of it.
Yeah.
You get
It's
to
gonna be
participate.
great.
it's gonna be a blast. But yeah, we love you guys. You know the drill. As always,
Nerd on.
Oh, I missed it. I missed the nerd on. Wait, do it again. I missed the
Okay.
nerd on.
Right, you want to do it? All right, we'll do it. Here we go.
Do I do it in there?
You
do it.
Okay, I missed the nerd on. I'm sorry.
Go.
we love you. You know the drill. As always,
Nerd on.
I got it.
We're doing both.